Hi, my name is Brendan Cameron. I'm the Strategic Accounts Director at AmericanEagle.com, and I'm here to introduce you to some strategies when it comes to developing your new website. Let me share my screen, and to start things off, what we're going to be looking into is where to start your strategy for developing a new site. And when you think about a new site development, the places you want to start are essentially the same places you would think when walking into a brick and mortar store or retail environment. That first impression is going to be key, but most importantly, you have to understand the types of customers that are going to be coming through your doors. So having a usable layout, understanding your customers that and who is going to be shopping with you, and having the goals set for each individual site that you launch. Now, when it comes to defining each of those characteristics, there's a number of different practices and processes that we use to help prepare that type of data and information. The first one is personas. It essentially is defining those different groups or different customer types that are going to be frequenting your e-commerce site. This can be anything from B2B experiences, things like engineers, purchasing agents and buyers, executives, as well as individual consumers. They can be separated by region or by age group. Any number one of these personas can be visited to your site, and then we are going to be able to rank them according to the types of purchases they're going to make, the types of products they're going to look at, etc. The next spot you're going to be going through is journey mapping. What journey mapping is essentially defining that workflow process from your homepage all the way through to checkout. There's going to be many different maps being made, anything from a traditional e-commerce purchasing experience, going from your homepage to a product, to the cart, to checkout, also to things like registration, what type of information you're going to gather from your customers, as well as if there's any additional custom pieces like product configurations, selections, personalization. Each of these things we want to make sure are properly mapped out so we understand the objectives and each gate that has to be passed through in order to complete that process. The next portion is user flows. This is to help assist in developing those audience personas. This ensures that actual audiences and their true behaviors are the defining goals of each of the brands. The persona development will help develop a long-term roadmap to nurture the relationship with existing customers, as well as drive awareness to future users via a strategic approach. When we're approaching this, it's, again, understanding things like taxonomies, the layouts of your departments, as well as any additional nested or categorical structures that'll be on the site. Now, once you go through and complete all of those different strategies, they're going to tie into the actual development project. When you start building your site, when you start putting graphics on it, and eventually get ready to roll it out for public. Now, during the American Eagle process, we have 5 pillars of UX and design. We go through essentially the same process you would as if you were building a house. Emphasize and learn, build the foundation, create an idea, improve, and then ongoing iterations. So if we were to equate this to building a house, the emphasizing and learning part is essentially the initial discussions with the architect or builder. What kind of style of house are you looking for? A colonial, a ranch, etc. How many floors, how many bathrooms, that type of thing. Once you start going and building the foundation, this is that define approach. This is where you would essentially build the blueprint of the house, understand where all the electrical outlets are, where the plumbing gets routed. And into the create is that design aspect. You're picking the colors of the different rooms, what type of fixtures and lighting you're going to have, all the way into improving it, ongoing testing while you're building the house, having walkthroughs, making sure that everything that you've built is properly reflected with those original goals and ideals you had. And then finally, the ongoing iterations, building an expansion, adding a new bathroom. It's always going to be developing and always going to be growing throughout that process. And here at American Eagle, this is the type of strategy we use. We go through our 4 steps: define, detailed design, conceptualize, and develop. So it's that same process that we're able to roll out and have a lot of success with. And it's that best practice that we always try to share with each of our clients. So in that discover methodology and practice, there are a number of different strategies that we put to use in order to do this. When we're doing our discoveries, we'll conduct competitive research. Take a look at competitors both in the market as well as similar markets that have various companies, and review their sites, review the functionality, and see what types of features and tools are kind of expected when we're going into that new website design. We also do a lot of customer surveys, reaching out both internally to your staff and team, and reaching out externally to the customers that will actually be using the site. When we go into defining, that's where we're going to be making those user personas. We're going to be building those use flows and test case scenarios. And then finally, building what we call a backlog or roadmap that puts in all of the different user stories and functionality into a priority order, so we know that at any point when we want to launch, we kind of know the information that will be available. And then during the design aspects of it, this is where we're going to take those user flows and start putting them into wireframes. We're going to start building conceptual designs, building the style guides, making sure we have a consistent voice across all of the different channels that you offer. You don't want to have your brick and mortar or your print marketing and advertising have a completely different style and layout than you would with your website design. And having these things defined, created, and thoroughly tested and iterated is going to make sure that you have that consistent voice across all your different channels. And then finally, when we start moving into the build phase, all of those pieces are now lined up. We have the user flows, we have the personas all defined, we have our backlog approved and ready to go. And this is where we can enter the iteration and rollouts of the various tools and functionality. All of your content will start to get populated on the site. The additional layouts and tools will be iterated into maybe an MVP, a minimum viable product, all the way into future phases and next versions for your website to continuously evolve. Having all of this planning done before that build phase ensures that you're going to keep your budget in mind, as well as making in common practice, knowing that you're not going to forget anything, get caught up and need to backtrack and lose time, most importantly. So thank you very much, everyone. If there are any further questions, my name is Brendan Cameron. My email address and phone number are at the bottom of the screen right now. And I do want to thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Hello, it's great to be here. I'm Chris Stack, the founder and CEO of Ecommerce, and I really appreciate Signifyd for putting this on and inviting me to participate. I also really appreciate the virtual format. It continues to be a great way to connect and learn, but in a safe and responsible manner. With a little additional forward progress and perhaps some luck with the vaccines, we'll do this in person next time, which I think will be crazy exciting. I'm sensing a lot of pent-up networking energy ready to burst out. I know I'm looking forward to doing it live. But here we are. And the theme of this conference relates to overcoming challenges with digital retail. And if 2020 wasn't a crash course in that, I don't know what would be. So I'd like to spend a few minutes sharing the experiences and lessons learned from a Ecommerce perspective. As you may or may not know, we're an order management system. We help brands curate the best possible shopping experiences for their consumers, and obviously we focus on the order processing side of that equation. Pretty much all of our customers operate across traditional channels of retail, brick and mortar, digital, wholesale, you name it. So when the pandemic hit, their lives were literally thrown into chaos. We're coming out of that chaos, thankfully. But as I look back and reflect, two really interesting stats come to mind. And really, these two stats are just vitally important overall, in my mind. Number one, according to PwC, 86% of buyers are willing to pay more to interact directly with brands they like and trust. So think about that. If brands can curate great consumer experiences, their customers will actually pay a premium to shop directly with them. That's 86% of the time. That's amazing. But as with all things, there's a flip side. According to the same report, 92% of consumers will abandon the brand altogether after a single negative experience. And that can be disastrous. So how does that relate to the challenges within digital, and especially those experienced last year in the pandemic? And the correlation in my mind has to deal with brands curating high quality shopping experiences for their customers. It's not easy, but to do that, brands have to focus on not only the strategies, but they must invest in great people, great technology, and great partners. They have to do this across their organization and through the full life cycle of the shopping experience, right on through returns. Brands that are laggards in this area, brands that are not focused on this, I promise you, they're losing market share. Whether they realize it or not, they're losing market share. However, when you are investing in these areas, you're not only in a position to grow, you're also in a strong position to handle unexpected curveballs like a global pandemic. As an example, we had several customers, New Balance, Build-A-Bear, great examples. They had to shut down virtually all of their retail stores. They had several of their distribution centers operating at a fraction of capacity because the areas they operated in were hit by COVID outbreaks. So while the whole country was essentially on lockdown, as many of you probably know, e-commerce orders were going through the roof. That was great. In fact, it was the lifeblood for many businesses, our customers included. But how do you get all those products out the door, especially when you're operating in limited capacity? Well, in our case, we helped our customers quickly pivot and think of their stores in new ways. We started routing shipment requests to stores, and we essentially created mini regional distribution centers. Ultimately, our customers started shipping hundreds of orders per day from their store network, things that they weren't doing prior to the pandemic. Not only did this get products out the door, oftentimes faster and less costly than before, but it also got their employees back in the door earning paychecks. I could go on and on about the seismic shifts that took place last year, but I'm going to save that for another time because I want to go back and touch on the key topic, the key point that I'm trying to make is how did brands, what did they do to be in a position to make this adjustment and to come out of this crisis, not only with their brand intact, but actually stronger? And it gets right back to the investing in great consumer experiences, investing in people, technology, and partners. So if you want to earn a customer's loyalty, and by doing so, get that cherry on top of the ice cream where you earn a premium share of their wallet, it's all about investing and focusing on the strategies related to digital commerce. That focus, that investment pays off when times are good, no doubt, but they pay off by an order of magnitude more when times are tough. And that's the key point I want to make. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks again to Signifyd for coordinating this event. If you'd like to chat with me, geek out about order processing, I'd love to do that always. Connect with me on LinkedIn. We've also created a special webpage just for this conference. If you go to deckcommerce.com/flow, I think you'll be rewarded with some really interesting and hopefully useful content. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, good afternoon, Signifyd family. My name is Ryan Carter, Director of Enterprise Americas for Payoneer. We're going to spend the next several minutes talking about a pretty hot topic right now called payment orchestration. For some of you that have heard of the term and know a lot about payment orchestration, excellent. Hopefully these next 5 or 6 minutes or so will validate some of your thinking there. For those that haven't, hey, no worries. Like I said, it's a newer topic. It's about a year or two old, and fasten your seatbelt. We're going to spend the next few minutes discussing payment orchestration. And just a little bit about myself. I've been in the payments sales side of things for about 20 years, starting with VeriSign, then PayPal back in the early 2000s, Lytle & Company, which became Vantif, WorldPay, now FIS Global. Recently made the move to Payoneer, where I'm carrying the payment orchestration flag for Payoneer Americas. I'm going to share my screen here, and this is my contact information if anybody would enjoy this presentation so much that they want to reach out. So before we address payment orchestration, let's talk about the problems that exist in payments. First of which, you don't need me to tell you this, but e-commerce is global, and you have many choices when it comes to payment service providers. Almost too many, right? And in fact, some of these big gorillas that I call them, these silver bullet PSPs, they really aren't the silver bullet. They may be great in North America, but when you need strength in Latin and South America, are they really that good? How about for e-wallets in Asia Pacific? Does your silver bullet PSP really have the coverage that you're paying for, right? Oftentimes these payment service providers go down, and orchestration solves for redundancy. We'll talk about that in just a second. And not to mention the fact that as your business grows globally, you want to be able to pivot, and you want to be able to do so quickly and not spend a lot of money. But that's not the reality, right? Implementing a new payment service provider takes time, and it costs a lot of money. So what exactly is a payment orchestration solution? It's a hosted payment stack, right? Payment orchestration is a platform that typically aggregates hundreds of different payment service APIs, acquiring banks and alternative payment methods. Merchants connect to a payment orchestration API once, and the rest is taken care of. Payment orchestration solutions, they're agnostic, right? We allow merchants to go and sign their own contracts, bring those in, plug them into the payment orchestration layer, and we handle the burden of the technology because we've built those rails to those existing payment service providers. And once live, we can smart route transactions between different providers based on many different reasons and criteria. Typically, we find that with payment orchestration solution, it speaks to many different parts of your org chart. The technology team, the engineers love payment orchestration because it basically frees them up to focus on other things, because the hosted payment stack is being taken care of by a payment orchestrator. Finance and accounting teams love payment orchestration because it allows them to negotiate pricing better. We can talk about that in a second. And also the payment experts, right? They're always looking for higher authorization rates, better fees. Payment orchestration allows them to do just that. So let's quickly revisit some of these pain points that we talked about earlier and demonstrate how payment orchestration solves for that, right? So we talked about how many payment service providers there are globally. The menu is enormous. Orchestration allows you to pick and choose, right? If you want a more niched payment service provider to service Chile, for example, go ahead and select that, right? Through payment orchestration, we can solve for that and eliminate the technology burden there. And go ahead and keep your silver bullet PSP, but complement that PSP with supplemental, again, more niched payment service providers in those growing regions where you're seeing that e-commerce traffic. All right. As for backup, for redundancy, for cascading, we can handle that. When your PSP goes down at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, we can immediately smart route that traffic to go to an alternate payment service provider. And if you decide that your business needs to be somewhere quickly, you can achieve that with payment orchestration, right? Again, sign the contract, negotiate your pricing, hand over the credentials, and you can be live in Brazil, for example, in a matter of days versus weeks, if not months. I hope you enjoyed this crash course in payment orchestration. If you'd like to get in touch with me, again, my name's Ryan. My email address is there, ryanca@payoneer.com. Thank you for your time today. Enjoy the rest of the summit.